Thank you. Good morning to everybody. And first of all, let me thank once more again the Institute for Cultural Diplomacy and its director, Marco Donfried, which make alive our conference, for inviting me to participate in this important annual meeting. Last year, it was mentioned yesterday by Mark, the honor was bestowed on me to host the ICD conference in the Senate in Rome. And we decided that we strongly wanted to host this event because it was also a means to underline that Italian institutions and policymakers believe that the channels of cultural diplomacy and more broadly culture should be used to pursue the goal of peace and international stability. And on this point, I will focus also my short intervention, a point which is very coherent and very close to what we talked about yesterday in the round table. These goals, peace and international stability, are increasing under threat. Even in the West, in the Western countries, where for several decades we have felt sheltered from the risk of new wars, the pursuit of peace and stability has become the center of worries and of political action, both within individual states and international relations. In this new international scenario, culture acquires even more relevance than in the past. Italy, and the Italian government even more so, is deeply convinced of this. Actually, you know, culture is a fundamental factor of our nation's identity. And this is why we are vigorously investing in cultural policies to strengthen internal cohesion and diplomatic initiative. Consequently, moreover, after the tragic attacks in Paris and the ensuing security emergency everywhere in Europe, the government decided to simultaneously increase funding for internal security and for cultural products for the young, books, theaters, movies, and culture at school, because we are convinced that it is necessary, first of all, to fight Daesh through culture. And I would underline that I say Daesh and not ISIS because we don't recognize the existence of an Islamic state. So, in our opinion, there is no responding to the hatred and violence of Islamic extremists with new nationalism or with the construction of the illusional walls in a global world, walls that somebody would build again in the heart of Europe. Even in the heart of Europe. The message of Daesh, which in some cases has been embraced by young Muslims perfectly settled in our European society, is to be fought with the weapon of knowledge, knowledge of the history of European and Arab countries, a history where the roots of the arts and science of this great civilization are closely interwoven, and also knowledge of the history of religions and the achievement of peaceful coexistence, tolerance, and mutual respect through centuries of wars, struggles, and clashes, blushed, which today should not be meted on the civilian population. This is the thinking behind the major conference on the Mediterranean organized by the Italian government these very days in Rome. In the conference, we laid the groundwork for the development of common economic policies on trade, cooperation, development, education, and enhancement of our respective culture and common roots. Those cultures that Daesh tried to efface irretrievably by destroying the invaluable World Heritage sites of Palmyra and Aleppo, and before of Afghanistan and of Mali, and by preventing young people who live under extremist occupation to do culture, to make music, to study, to play, to cancel their identity. Only culture can oppose this new obscurantism in the minds of young people. So convinced are we of all this that Italy, together with Jordan, with the support of the UNESCO, Interpol, and UNODC, have launched during the last UN General Assembly in New York last October an international project to strengthen the protection of cultural heritage targeted by terrorists and the illicit trade in works of art. Italy has also decided to embed experts on the recovery and restoration of cultural properties in the international military missions where our country is present and is involved, because peace and reconstruction, in our opinion, in countries ravaged by wars and conflicts, are achieved also by rebuilding the cultural identity of the people involved. The defense of culture must be universally understood as a shared responsibility for the international community and must be pursued for the sake of future generations. Yet, all this is not enough in our view. The challenge we face in our countries also has to do with the modus of integration. The immigration crisis that has hit Europe this year is an event of an unprecedented scale that continues to bring thousands of people each week to the Italian and Greek coasts. According to the UNHCR data, some 643,000 people have reached our countries via the Mediterranean in the period January-October 2015. And we should not forget that the places of origin of those seeking a new home in Europe are Syria for 53% about, Afghanistan 30%, Iraq 10%. These huge numbers call for asylum and cultural integration and policies, For this reason, Italy is to launch a major plan for the relict urban areas, the marginal areas of our society, the new ghettos where the desperate call of terrorist extremism may be heeded. We need to redevelop neighborhoods, turn schools into real engines of cultural growth, and create meeting places for young people who cannot be left alone to surf the internet. At the same time, we have to invest more and more to make our citizens aware and more prepared to accept different religions and habits, to avoid that nationalist and xenophobic political parties prevail in a very short term. Because if this occurs, I think peace and international stability should be seriously at risk. Communication channels should be created through which culture can help overcome differences for the sake of peace. We should commit ourselves to developing new relationships between people, companies, countries, to facilitating economic relation, trade, investment in those sensitive areas where the fight against poverty and for economic development can isolate Islamic fundamentalism and offer young people employment and income. Cultural diplomacy can multiply this channel. As well as private sector and civil society can play a crucial role. National and EU policies should give strong responses. Our civilization can be defended only by recognizing the value of each and every one of them through knowledge, cultural exchange, cooperation. All this is to be developed and facilitated by diplomatic networks at all levels. This is also, I think, the crucial challenge for Europe. Yesterday, as been said, we are at an historical turnaround where will be measured our capacity of managing globalization. During the last 15 years, and generally speaking, after the walls of the Cold War, European institutions have been working for the objective of economic stability as an instrument for achieving in all European countries welfare and peace. Now Europe, to preserve its identity and its values, have to assume as a strategic priority global stability and peace. Europe has, first of all, to show how to tackle migrations and refugees emergency in the respect of human rights, which are the base of our culture. Being aware that first right is education and the respect of mutual identity, and that education culture are the fundamental instrument to avoid that within young migrants may grow many young terrorists. This is why support must be given to the role and work that foundations and associations like ICD perform so commendably. And for this, I thank you very much. I thank you deeply, the ICD, and then we shall listen how the president of our advisory board is planning to develop our works. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Senator Lanzillotta. Before you leave the stage, would you like to take one or two questions, perhaps, or from the audience? Just in case there's a question or a comment, I see one is right here. So if you could keep your questions concise, would also be excellent. We are under a bit of time pressure, but please, and also briefly introduce yourself. Thank you.
Thank you. Hello, Senator. My name is Raphael Dapper. I'm here from the UK. I work for the Ministry of Defence. First and foremost, that was a brilliant speech, and I particularly like the fact that you refuse to acknowledge ISIS as a state by referring to them as Daesh, which is brilliant. My question to you is the fact that Italy have invested such a considerable amount of their budget towards cultural diplomacy, so to speak. The thing is, I see this as a long-term solution. How do you deal and tackle with the immediate and very real threat of Daesh?
I said before that from our point of view, there are two simultaneous approaches. The long-term approach, which is education, culture, cooperation, managing the migration phenomenon in the respect of human rights, and bringing policies which include but respecting the identity of migrants. And this is a long-term work. But at the same time, we have to strengthen security, internal security, and international initiatives. Yesterday, I said that from our point of view, international initiatives as to promote the reaction of Arab countries and the building of a diplomatic perspective before military initiatives, because we think that one of the reasons of the tragic situation we are now tackling is the intervention in Libya, which was made without a diplomatic perspective. So we have to work on different direction, and diplomatic direction, one of the goal of the conference on the Libya, which is now happening in Rome, and the Mediterranean conference, are exactly this, to put together all the Arab government and also, if possible, a Libyan government. So there is a huge diplomatic work we are carrying on. There is a problem of internal security, and there is a problem of long-term policies. We cannot think that the problem is over tomorrow, but we have to have clear where to go.